The Bank of England have confirmed that UK inflation has unexpectedly fallen in August to 6.7%.
What does that mean for your money, your savings, your interest rate payments on your mortgage, the cost of rent and the cost of living? We're joined by the financial analyst, Louise Cooper, who is a lecturer in finance at Kingston University Business School.
I am.
So lecture us on what this means, Louise.
We have good news, OK?
Makes a change.
I don't often come in and say that to you both, but I'm going to tell you today. So inflation has fallen again, so it's 6.8 to 6.7. That's not a huge fall, is it? 6.8% to 6.7.
It was expected to go up.
But it was expected to go up. The peak was 11.1% in October. So we're, coming down. All of this is good news. But this is still very high inflation. We still, in the UK, have one of the highest inflation rates in the developed, out of developed
countries. And what it effectively means is we're in the middle of a cost of living crisis where anything you're buying is effectively 6.7% more expensive than it was last year. We're just grateful it's not 7.1% more expensive.
And then on top of that, because we have high inflation, the Bank of England has had to increase interest rates substantially, like massive increase in interest rates. And what does that do to the economy? It slows the economy because it takes money out of people's pockets in the form of higher rental or higher mortgages, means they can't buy stuff, and then that's what leads to price
So what do you think the Bank of England will do in response to this? Gone down 0.1%.
So it's interesting that sterling, the pound, has fallen this morning in the last half hour since we had this data, and that tells you that traders, the markets think we may not get a rate rise tomorrow, or we may not get a rate rise in the future. So what it's telling you is actually the slightly lower inflation figure means we might have more control of inflation than we previously thought, and that means interest rates might not need to go up as much as we'd previously thought.
What is remarkable, Louise, is that interest rates have been so high. Anyone paying for a mortgage, it's been eye-watering. Anyone going to a petrol station will look at the price of petrol and think that is ridiculous. So how come inflation, the rate of prices rising, seems to have dipped wherever it feels like everything's getting more expensive?
So the CPI figure I'm giving you, Consumer Price Index, doesn't include your mortgage cost. OK, so that's the reason why it doesn't actually include it. So, yes, for most people...
Or your higher rent.
Or your higher rent. So for most people, that measure of inflation does not include this massive increasing in your monthly mortgage.
But it should include the price of petrol.
It does, and actually petrol has been a big thing driving inflation higher. And actually, if you look at the global oil price, it's actually ticking higher as well.
Just to say, you're looking at the graphic now. If you go to a motorway petrol station, it'll be even more expensive.
A lot more than that. And I notice this. I'm a freelance. I do a lot of driving around, and I'm astonished at the price gap between my high street garage, which is where I shop for my fuel now. I never ever fill up at a motorway service station. It's always way higher. Why?
Well, because it's kind of monopoly pricing, right? If you're on the motorway and you're going somewhere, they don't, they're going to charge you what? There's not a lot of competition.
You mean it's a rip-off?
It's economics, right? I mean,
supply and demand, I think, is
it's monopoly pricing. I mean, the key thing really, though, is how much higher do rates go? Yes, we've had good news today, but will that continue? The risks very much for inflation and interest rates are on higher inflation, higher interest rates. So, yes, this is good today, but we've got a long way to go in terms of battling inflation. We're a long way from two.
Anyone with a mortgage or anyone paying higher rent because their landlord's mortgage is going up might think, OK, inflation rate has gone down 0.1%. Why don't the Bank of England bring down the interest rate by the equivalent?
Because we're still very high inflation compared to where it should be, which is 2%. The Bank of England's last forecast suggests we're not going to get to 2% until 2025.
And so high interest rates until then.
And I would argue even that is optimistic. Inflation tends to be sticky.
And briefly,
it sticks around.
You opened by saying that our inflation rate is notably higher than most other parts of the world, many other parts of the developed world. Why France? Why Germany? Why America? Why do we have higher inflation?
We all have had COVID hit. We all had the Ukraine war hit. What we have problematically in the UK is a lack of labour. So we have a labour shortage. Part of that is the 2.5 million economically inactive, and part of that is after Brexit, after COVID, we haven't had so many immigrants. And so we have extremely high wage increases because of a lack of a labour force. Yeah. That's great for us in the labour force, not so great for inflation.
Crystal clear. Thank you.